Right, here we go. So this is an add-on to yesterday's stream that was about the governing board thingamajig. I want to cover the I touched on it yesterday, but I want to sort of go into a little bit more detail because I think it can be useful as a way of sort of like outsmarting yourself or hacking your own brain. So when you come up with a challenge in life, a situation that you can't seem to resolve or navigate through, you can factor in blind spots or areas of cognitive failure and sort of work with what you've got, utilize what you do have available to you. And so I'm going to be using the governing board story thing as a kind of backdrop for us to make a tangible framework to work with, but it's not really about that. This is more about your cognitive processing, how you problem solve and derive some decision making. So emphasis on that sort of aspect of it. So good evening, Iridium. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Hemi, thank you for being here. So hopefully this won't be a terribly long stream, but it might be a bit technical. And I just remembered I did not prepare. I should have prepared a bit of a slide to make this more. Okay, all right, you're going to have to bear with me a second. I'm going to have to do this on the fly. Let's see if I get a notepad up. All right, let me share a notepad. Oh, no, don't remove. Oh, I just added it and then I removed it. Sorry. I'm bringing up a notepad. I'm trying to. Okay, where is it? Why can't I see it? Oh, my computer's just been a bit slow. Oh, I need to make that bigger. Can you read this? Can you read this? I got too small. I can make it bigger. Font size. Oh, I think my computer is raining outside. If I disconnect or something like that, the weather isn't too good. Oh, where's my notepad gone? All right, font size 20. Right. Hopefully you can read that. So, cognitive stack, we'll put 1. This will be different for different people, but in my case, this is the order of functions, the process, the sequence. Intuition, introverted. Number 2, feeling, extroverted. Put a space there. Number 3, thinking, introverted. And 4, sensory, extroverted. And then we don't really need to look into the other 4 functions, but we'll put them here anyway, just for complete sake. So this will be the opposite. So if the other one was introverted intuition, this will be extroverted intuition. These are the shadow functions. I'll put shadow here. Shadow functions. And these are your sort of the big 4. I don't know how you would call it. The main 4. These are this is sort of like your ego. The main 4. I'll just put main 4. Right. Down we go. So the next one. What's the opposite of extroverted feeling? It would be introverted feeling. And what's the opposite of introverted thinking? It'll be extroverted thinking. And have a guess what the last one will be? It'll be sensing, introverted. Right. A little small for my blind eyes. Okay, sorry, Iridium. I will make it bigger. Don't worry, there's not going to be a lot of typing. That's basically all the typing that needs to be done. Just something so that I'll make it 28. How about that? Oh, maybe that's a bit too big. Can I make this a bit bigger? Squeeze it in. I can get rid of that top bit for a start. All right. So some of you might notice that these are the functions for an INFJ. Oh dear. So we're off to a bad start. Okay. Now, So having that in the background and using the story of the governing board, you may, if you remember, if you haven't watched it, you might want to watch it. Bear with it. It is a lot of kind of me just basically talking to myself as usual, but it is a sort of real-time example of the internal battle that can happen for a personality type such as myself. And every personality will have what we call a loop, and a loop will be, how can I indicate? Will be 1 and 3. So how can I indicate this? I need like a pencil I can circle. If I put plus, I don't know how. I'll put arrows. All right, that one and this one. Let's create loop. Right. So this is how it loops. This one gets sort of xed out. Oh no, that's not a really good way of putting it. Imagine that being crossed out. Anyway, so that's I'll put crossed out. How about that? Or jumped, crossed or jumped. So normally you'd think your process would be 1, 2, 3, 4 in sequence, but when you enter a loop, you skip a step. You skip step 2. So you just go from 1 to 3, and this is the what was being shown in that stream in sort of real time. Okay, so this is already, I can already sense this is getting convoluted. I'm trying to keep it in kind of layman's term to gently bring people into an understanding, because you're going to probably be interested in, well, what's your cognitive stack and how does it play its part? For example, I'm pretty familiar. There are many similarities with an ITJ. So an ITJ. Oops, don't do that. Do this. So their one would be the same again, introverted intuition. So there's a similarity there, but the 2 and 3 are swapped around. So they have it like this. That's why it's easy for me to remember. So their loop would, if you look at 1 and 3, hold on, what's this one? Let's see. Right. So if I put down, right, if I put, dang it. What am I doing? What am I doing? Right, so if I put loop equals 1 plus 3, right? So for the INFJ, that would mean NI plus TI. For the INTJ, it would be NI, oops, not IN, NI plus, you guessed it, FI. So both experience it quite similar as well, like sort of depressions, you want solitude because they're both introverted functions. But for the INFJ, this is a logical loop. This is analysis paralysis. Can't derive a answer. Your vision, your intuition is looking for patterns, and your self-orientated thinking is coming up with its own sort of theories and feeding it back and creating that loop. For the INTJ, their vision is being, oh, that's going to be a plus sign. Their vision is going into their feelings, and how they feel about it is influencing their intuition. Intuition looks in introverted intuition, especially, is looking towards the future. It's looking at patterns. It's a visionary. It's an observer. It's perceiving function. So this is not really a function that is based in the present reality. This is already a dreamer type of function. This is why these types of people can appear to be like fortune tellers or predict the future or are good advisors, because they can kind of see further down the road. So for a INFJ stuck in this loop, they're seeing logic into the future and how their plan isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. These are bad ideas. There are problems. This ain't going to happen. So the pragmatics of it, the logistics of it, and that's circling around. Every time they try to apply their logic, they're trying to think they're trying to grasp an understanding of the situation. And every time they sort of map it out with their intuition to forecast, will this solve the problem? They keep coming back with no, this ain't going to solve the problem. Think again, Billy. You got to try and think harder. So now you can see how you're overthinking, you're overanalyzing, and you're rattling your brain, and you've got analysis paralysis, too much information. For the INTJ, instead of a logical analysis paralysis, this is more of a decision paralysis. They will see the future. They will have, especially if this is a negative, if it's a positive feeling, they can kind of live in a sort of blissful state. It's not necessarily a bad loop. But if they experiencing a sad feeling, then they are projecting that into the future, and living that sad feeling before it's even taken place. So that's quite tormenting for the INTJ, to have this kind of anxiety, worry, sadness that hasn't even happened, but NI is running simulations to predict, to make accurate predictions, to forecast, to fortune tell. You have to run simulation after simulation after simulation to play out the possibilities until you narrow it in. This is the introverted aspect of it. You're narrowing in until there's a singular vision. If this was NE, for example, then you'll be looking at the many possibilities. But this is the other way around. This is narrowing down into a singular, this is what will happen, more definite. And the only way you can do that is to run these simulations. So it's already quite a like, it depends how you want to look at it. Everything's got pros and cons. It's good because this optimizes and it makes things more efficient and reliable. If data is correct and other inputs are correct, then you can make accurate predictions. You see the patterns, you see the trends, you've got history behind you, you kind of know what's up ahead, then it's pretty much for certain. But if there are biases or subjectivity involved, or you're jumping steps out of it, so for the INFJ, they're jumping out FE, and for the INTJ, they're jumping over TE. Now you've got corrupted data. You can't really make accurate predictions anymore. So you're stuck. You will forever carry on running this simulation, trying to make it work, because it's built into the function of that function. Does that make sense? It's there to find an answer, and no matter how hard it tries to find an answer, it's got corrupted information, so it can't find an answer. But that doesn't stop it from being active. It's still going to try and find some sort of correlation of data points and patterns. It's still going to do it, and these functions, the third functions, will still do their thing as well. And this is the problem when you're jumping step 2. Okay, so that quick crash course in the MBTI to one side for now. Hopefully you're with me, you understand. So to make this more relatable, like case study sort of thing. So with that governing board, they're there to function as a they're there to manage. They're not supposed to be managing the daily run-ins of the school, but they're there to sort of overlook and keep in check that the school is following its policies. It's carefully spending its budget. They're looking at the tables and figures and things like that. You'll quickly see that FE, this function of FE, is omitted. It's not really welcomed in a governing board. Imagine you're running a company and you want facts, you want logic to run this company well. Well, then you're not really going to be asking people how they feel about things. You might, in terms of morale, and that's what this function is serving. This function, extroverted feeling, is looking for harmony, morale. This is where your morals and your ethics are coming from. This is your values. These are values. I don't really want to squeeze in extra. Where can I squeeze this in? So if I put F is looking at morals. I'll put in capital letters actually. So values, that's the big one. Values. So this would be like your morals, with your likes and dislikes. Um, what else did I just say? Harmony. Harmony is a big one, right? Thinking is looking for reasons. Oh, put that in capital. So this is, it'll be like, what's the reason why we should do something? Oh, because it'll be cheaper. It'll be more effective. Effective, efficient, cheaper, right? As soon as you say like, oh, the reason is because we think it looks pretty, or we think we like it, well, now you're talking sort of values. So that's the difference between the INFJ and the INTJ. This is what they're putting forward. So you can see, therefore, at the meeting, really thinking. I'll put this above, actually. I'll put this above here. Thinking takes more priority than feelings, theoretically. So that automatically basically crosses out my second function. I can't use it. So I'm already thrown into a loop from the get-go. I'm now dealing with introverted intuition and introverted thinking. And introverted thinking isn't what the group, the tribe, that it's not their reasons. These are my subjective reasons. This would be like why I want it. So if I was to put forward an idea, like, I think we should sack 10 staff members, that would be a subjective opinion. That would be like in my personal opinion, my self opinion, I think I want to sack 10 staff members. It's not necessarily reflective of what the tribe wants. If the tribe was saying as a group, yeah, we should get rid of 10 members of staff, then that would be something like this. So, so an INTJ would be looking at the situation, looking at everyone's reasons, and combining it and say like, hey guys, I've just listened to all your reasons, and it seems like you all want to get rid of some staff. Well, how about we get rid of some staff then? So everyone would be in agreement, because it's basically just echoing what everyone else is saying. So there wouldn't. So it'd be a lot easier for someone with a TE function to implement change. I don't have TE in my stack, if you notice. So I don't any logical reasons I put forward would be personal based. That's not permitted on the governing board, as I mentioned in that stream. So I've already got my hands sort of tied up here a little bit. Now, to break these loops, you need to reintroduce the second function. So somehow I need to reintroduce FE into this equation. Otherwise, I'll be in analysis paralysis, which you kind of witnessed me talking about earlier. And during this stream, we'll talk about how I broke that analysis paralysis by understanding this structure of cognitive functions, how it stacks and how it plays its role. This is hacking your own brain. This is understanding yourself, and it can be quite an eerie thing, because you like to feel, everyone likes to feel that you're free to make your own choices, right? But when you explore this kind of research, you realize that no, that's a little bit of a delusion. You like to think you're a free spirit, but actually, no, you're being pulled internally. So, and the trouble with me trying to use my extroverted feeling to assess people's values, when I look around, what did I say I noticed? that they're basically socialist and they're talking woke nonsense, SJW. So their values aren't something I agree with. Just because you've got FE or TE doesn't mean you value the tribes. I mean, I shouldn't use the word value there because you you count up or whatever. You acknowledge the tribe's values because it's F, or you acknowledge the tribe's reasons, but just because they have their values or reasons doesn't mean you as an individual have to go along with it. In likelihood you will, because it's what most people want, kind of thing, but you can still, just because you don't have FI here doesn't mean you don't possess FI. It's just your preference is the extroverted in this case, or just because you've got TE doesn't mean you have no thoughts of your own. You do have thoughts of your own. It's just in second place to the tribes, if you're understanding what I'm saying. So that's another little thing to bear in mind. And that's the same with all of this. So you have all the functions. It's just which one are you preferring to lean on initially, sort of thing. So just because you've got NI, you like to narrow down ideas, patterns, concepts. You like to look into the future and things like that. Doesn't mean you can't branch out. You can. It's just you're better skilled, or your preference, or you're stronger, or whatever is more funneling it down, condensing it. You know, just because you've got SC doesn't mean you can't do the. You haven't got the abilities to exercise SI. So in that way, just because I see that the tribe's values might be leftist, socialist, SJW, doesn't mean I have to be a people pleaser and agree with them. I still have my own values, my own personal values, my own FI. The trouble is, my FI, if you look where it is, it's in the shadow down here, which is also known as the critical parent. And unfortunately is a bit of a bruiser and would like to tell me that I'm a piece of shit. So this would be like the source of my low self-esteem, for example. Source of low esteem. Now for the INTJ, theirs would be, if you look down here, would be TI. So the INTJ would be TI, would be their critical parent. So instead of so if you have FI, this would be a negative in your value system of how you see yourself. So you aren't worthy, Billy. But if you've got TI in the critical parent slot, which here it is, then, sorry about this being all over the place, but TI would say something like, you dumb, you dumb, you dumb bum, just as effective, but you dumb, something like that. So I'm digressing a little bit. So yeah, there were times, and I gave a few examples in the previous stream of my objections, my opinions at the meeting, and now with this bit of knowledge here, you'll see that those opinions were either something like TI speaking up, my self reasons, or it would be FI in a form of a critical parent speaking up, and that voice would be a kind of weak one because it's low down in the function stack. Now this is where outsiders trying to help. If I came to people and say, hey guys, give me some advice here, help me out, I'm struggling, and if you guys started giving me further reasons, like, hey Billy, you should make these changes because it would be good for society, we need to put a stop to this woke ideology, so you need to take over the board, you need to put them down, you need to eliminate their arguments, and these are the good, reasons. And I'm not saying they're wrong reasons or bad reasons. What I'm saying is that adding more reasons to my loop of NITI makes the loop harder, because those reasons would be fed into the NI. The NI would run its simulation and try and forecast, do these reasons work? And because these are both introverted, there is imbalance. To balance this out, you notice I said before that you have to introduce the second function. It's the opposite. It's an extroverted function that helps balance you out. So then you're not stuck in your own head with this puzzle. You've got outside sources that can guide you. But if people are giving me additional reasons using their TE that is being intercepted with my TI, then it's giving me even more. I already spoke about like having analysis paralysis, and then you're giving me additional reasons why such and such action should take place. Even more analysis paralysis. It's not breaking the cycle, it's perpetuating it. It's fueling it even more. So really, instead of having reasons, advice in the form of reasons being given to me, I need values to break this cycle. So I need people with FE to give me their ideas. And this is a bit of a problem because, well, this would be outside of the governing body for me to ruminate over, because I was saying that FE isn't really welcomed in a situation as the governing body. And it isn't that easy, because an easy, quick way of giving me a value to motivate me is to coerce me with guilt or shame. So it'd be like saying, okay, Billy, you need a reason to take action, to stop twiddling your thumbs. Here's a good reason. It's your duty, it's your obligation. You're gonna feel shame. Like, think of all the people you're gonna let down if you know you can make a difference, then you're duty bound to do so. So that might be effective, yes, but it's not a very nice way of getting someone to do something. And those sort of criticisms you'll be tag teaming with FI, the critical parent, that will be saying to me like, yeah, Billy, F you got to do this because shame on you, because you're a piece of scum, and then you have to do it. This is the only way of clawing back some dignity. So that's not really a good way of getting someone to do things, because then I'm making change for my own personal esteem or validation or benefit. It takes the situation. I'm not trying to change the school or help the school for the sake of the people. I'm doing it because I feel guilty and ashamed. I'm doing it for selfish reasons. That's not good. That's not a good way of implementing change, like, morally speaking. I don't think. It might be effective, it might work, it might do the trick, but you got to live with your decisions at the end of the day afterwards as well. And this is why someone left a comment during that stream about, like, Billy, like, stop rationalizing. That's the point. It's like, when you're in this loop, you can't stop rationalizing. Like, INFJs will overthink things to death. And that's a strong point as well as a weakness. That's why you can be seen as some sort of like a sage, like a fountain of knowledge or something like that. It's because you spent so much bloody time ruminating and working things out, running these simulations forever, trying to find the most articulate, consolidated, condensed meaning answer you can possibly derive. So it's not that I was rationalizing or having analysis paralysis out of choice. This is just part of the machine that's running. Like, what's that when you in car mechanics, when a diesel engine, like a runaway engine, a runaway where there's no stopping it. Like once it gets going, it's gonna keep going until some sort of intervention steps in. And FE could be blocked for other reasons as well. Like this can be a self-derived decision. I could just decide one day, like, F it, yo, I ain't gonna bother think about people's feelings, and I'm just gonna shortcut it, you know. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a situation where you're at a governing board meeting and they say, no, we don't want this here. For example, another way this could happen is if I was living a life of solitude. So a lot of you want to talk about monk mode. This is one of the dangers you'll have being monk mode, is you won't have feedback either one, really. You won't have any feedback from the outside world. So what does that mean? That means you're going to be stuck inside your head in monk mode. You've got nothing to tell you otherwise that you're wrong, because introverted thinking without any feedback will think it is right, and introverted feeling will think it is right. So this is where delusion can step in, because if you are convinced, you've got nothing to tell you that you're wrong, that you are convinced that someone hates you, then to you, with an INTJ, you will go forward thinking, this person hates me. You'll feed that into your NI, you'll look for the patterns, and you'll go, ah, yes, I see patterns of it everywhere. Everyone hates me. And then bingo, you've now legitimized your feelings, your false belief that people hate you. You know, or if TI, you think this is going to fail, you think this ain't going to work, so you feed that into NI, you input that data into the machine of NI, and you look for signs of it failing everywhere, and you go, yeah, you're right, TI, this ain't going to work. So there is also this sort of, they're a little bit geared, or a little bit that they have a tendency to look for bad outcomes as well, unfortunately. And you saw probably elements, if you look back at my stream, of that kind of self-doubt, thinking I'm ineffective, I don't know what kind of change I could make, what's the point, like all I see is nothing but trouble. So that's the voice of the NITI loop speaking out, and it's like it's delusional to an extent. I'm not talking about delusion in the sense of like out of your mind completely, you know, whatever, but it's not a very rational, realistic way of processing your cognitive ability, your functions. So I mentioned that now these sort of functions and even these loops, it's quite interesting for the INFJ. This loop is actually quite a learning experience, and I believe they learn more out of going through a loop than other types, because of the amount of exploration taking place. And it reminds me of whatever type you are, and whatever kind of functions are included in your loops, or functions in general. It's the old Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So there is nothing inherently wrong with any of these functions. They're just out of whack. They need calibrating. So you need to be more responsible with them. And that is where, if you're not responsible with them, you'd be classified as unhealthy. So this is a loop, is you experiencing unhealthy behavior because you're not being healthy by using all that you possess. You're omitting things out. And just for to make it a bit more a more intense loop, if you're jumping two, if you're crossing two out, you're going from one 3. And then you say to yourself, I need to get some extroverted functions in here. And instead of trying to reinsert FE, your second function, you decide to try and use your fourth. This is the inferior function. This isn't a strong function. The strongest is number 1. It gets weaker as you go down. So this is a weak inferior function, and it's sensing. This is looking at facts, looking at data, looking at your 5 senses, sight, hearing, touch, sound, and whatever the other was, smell. This is what keeps you grounded to reality. And you're already in this kind of quasi mind state, distorted thinking, and you start looking out. Now you try and add in ... You try and add in some SE. So you start looking around you for things to bolster this loop. You're not really using it in an objective way. You're being selective. You're cherry picking your senses to support this distorted way of thinking. And this is a fantastic way of people falling into the trap of conspiracy. Ever notice conspiracy thinkers? They're a bit selective with their data, and that's what they're doing. I'm not saying that they're all INFJs, but I wouldn't be surprised if a good portion of them are. And this is what's happened. They are, maybe they're using extroverted intuition, but it's the same principles of misusing of functions, recruiting additional functions to support distorted thinking, and it goes crazy. This is where you start getting, like, I don't know, 5G lizard people on a flat earth, wanting to stop oil and dyeing their hair blue. Why not just mash them all together at this point? This hybrid of conspiracy theories. And I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of reading going on now, but screw you, pressing on. So and if you try to say, another suggestion would be like, so okay, Billy, just maybe just like cross some of this out, like maybe forego it, maybe miss, it's if TI is causing a problem, then don't bother you, or if your NI is like, don't bother to use it. Like, that isn't being realistic. That is also causing a imbalance in your holistic mindset. You need it all, really, and they all work in unison, and they're all related to each other. So to omit, to try and swap out and things like this is a way of avoiding the responsibility of having, it's like tough tits. Like, this is what you've got. You gotta work with it, not try and be avoidant of it. It'll cause additional problems if you're not careful. And the thing is, the problems that you encounter with whatever stack you've got can be dealt with if you know what you're dealing with. And this is the transition from being a unaware and probably sort of unhealthy to a more healthy version of yourself. And that includes acknowledging your shadow functions, for example. So this is only really half the picture. It kind of like reminds me of, see, I've got diabetes, and it's like the doctors being mystified. They're a bit puzzled. It's like if you just take your medication, follow the program, there won't be a problem. And then they get the blood results in, and like, your sugars are high, or why is it you're having hypos? It's like, doctor, like, have you forgotten, doctor? I'm a diabetic. You should know more than anyone. It's like, oh yeah, yeah. I just presumed that this medication would cure you somehow. It's like, no, doctor, that's not how it works. Diabetes, like, diabetics struggle with having to regulate their sugar levels. That's why they have the medication. Duh. That's why you prescribe it to me, right? Just because you follow this, just because you've written out a program, a schedule for me, you've written out life for me. That's not how life works. So it's inevitable. Like, even though I may take my medication, I may follow the regime, do the exercise, have a strict diet or whatever, all the rest of it, that doesn't eliminate times when my sugar levels will go up and times when my sugar levels will go down. They will happen. So even with all this knowledge that we're talking about with these function stacks, there will be times when you or I or whatever, we will have a loop. This ain't the last time it's ever going to happen. It's going to happen again. It will. The question is now what you're going to do differently about it. That is the key. And that is what we're pushing in this stream tonight, is to understand the gearing of your mind, the mechanism in your mind, so that you can be more attentive and responsible and outsmart yourself. You could spot when things are going awry, take the clues and the signals and the symptoms, and intervene appropriately, instead of guessing, instead of scratching your head, I don't know, and or having a meltdown, or things like red pill rage, for instance. What I'm telling you here, if you apply it preemptively, will help you not to go into red pill rage. It doesn't mean you won't ever have red pill rage. It means now if you start feeling red pill rage, you will know, this is a warning sign. I need to do X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, I'm going to maybe go into a loop. I'm going to become distorted thinking. I'm not going to be able to take in data properly, and it's going to be a recipe for disaster. Now, if this loop continues prolonged, then even though it is, like I was saying, like, so in this with NI and TI, the kind of thinking will be like my plans are rubbish. This ain't going to work. I'm useless. I'm not wanted. I see nothing but trouble. My ideas suck. Even though this is all kind of distorted and skewed, excessive, what's it, like extreme, there's another E word I'm trying to find, out of proportion. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if that's the kind of thoughts you've got running in your head, you're going to end up creating that situation, and then you're going to look at it and be like, see, I was right. So you're going to validate this loop and not see a problem with it, because it's just been proven right through self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's because you're not using the other functions. And as such, you'll end up doubling down even further. And in the case of the INFJ, this is quite often manifest as a similar form of red pill rage, like an angry streak. I'm not too sure if that's because FE has been crossed off, then it's kind of like opened the way for FI to fill in the gap, and FI being the critical cynic, or whatever, harsh, blunt, brutal, is filling in the gap here and injecting its rage into the situation. Because FI, even though it's like that, it is actually trying to help you out. It's trying to remind you to assert boundaries and to think better of yourself and to prioritize yourself more, but it does it in a uncompassionate sort of way. It's like it slaps you in the face and says, you're letting people walk all over you. You're a loser because of it. Like, pull yourself up, man. Think better of yourself. You bum. It's like, you want me to feel better about myself, but you're calling me a bum at the same time. Right. I see how that works. So FI doesn't know how to talk nicely to you, but it does have it tries to anyway have good intention. It tries to protect you. All of these functions are there to serve you as the owner. But yeah, so I can step into this formula here, and really show off how mistreated it feels. Like, not only have people walked all over you, but you've given too much of yourself, Billy. You've sacrificed too much. We can't take it anymore. There's nothing more to give. So it has a intensity behind it. It has a stubbornness, and when it teams up with TI, it will be much more calculating in its delivery, in its attacks. So an angry INFJ that is enraged and wants to go on the attack knows, because before this has been crossed out, FE has already discovered people's vulnerabilities and insecurities. That's one of its jobs, is to look for harmony, right? So it's evaluating people's stability. It's gauging where they are, where they're at emotionally. So it knows people's strengths and it knows people's weaknesses. Now, that kind of information in the wrong hands of someone who is angry and now wants to go on the attack means that when they do go on the attack, they know precisely where to target and most effective at delivering maximum pain and damage. So that makes this person potentially kind of dangerous when things are going completely off the rails. And it's not something to be proud of. It's not something to showboat over. It takes a toll on the INFJ because this is something that they're trying to prevent at all costs. In some ways, it's the same reason why they're actually very compassionate and kind, empathetic, generous people. It's this sort of weird, paradoxal juxtaposition of I don't want to say like Jekyll and Hyde, but it's a little bit like that. So that beast, that berserker, that whatever, that monster, it takes its toll. A part of the INFJ dies because with it, like innocence, people's trust, like they won't look at you the same, knowing that there's a sort of dark side about you. Thing is, everyone's got some sort of dark side, so don't think, oh, this is just for the the INTJ will have a particularly nasty type of rage as well. And every type will have their own brand of shadow side to them. And you might have noticed that in recent streams and things like that, I have to admit, I've been a little bit more cranky than usual, raising my tone and not as compassionate and love light rainbows as I normally am. So those are signs that stress is building up and I need to do something about it. Now normally to do something about it would be the FE needs to be reintroduced to help dial it back down. For the INTJ, that would be reasons to calm down. You need reasons to calm down. This one would be like, I need values to calm down. Like, remember, don't be a monster in front of your kid. That's going to be, you don't want your kid to grow up living with a beast, do you? Sort of thing. So that would be the reminders I would need. So what else can I add here? So again, ultimately this comes with lessons. Like the takeaway, like what does this all mean? They need to be responsible, and there are consequences if you're not, or if you let things just run amok. You could lose friends over it. You could lose family over it. You could lose your reputation. You could hurt yourself in the process. You could end up in jail if you do something really bad. Um, and when you become more mindful and factor it in, and you become more healthy, it actually adds to your overall strength of character. Excuse me, get a bit of hiccups. So how did I apply this to my situation with the governing board? Let's go back to the case study here. So I know I needed to reintroduce some FE for perspective, and FE also prioritizes. Here's a fun one to mess with the thinkers among you, right? If you've got 10 tasks, if I give you 10 tasks and say, right, I want you to complete these 10 tasks, but the problem is you're only going to be able to complete 8 of them. There's not enough time to do all 10. How, with pure logic, how do you decide which 8 you're going to do? And the thing is, the logical person will probably turn around and say, no, I'm going to do all 10. I'm just going to do them more efficiently and quicker. So that's the problem with pure logic. There's no value really to it. Now, where value comes along, prioritizes, it will selectively choose, like, look, I'm going to do these many or whatever. And the funny thing as well with the thinkers is, because they're so efficient, so methodical, so analytical and logical, and bless them for it, it's wonderful. It's a powerful skill, don't get me wrong. But they have apparently they have a tendency to spend more time planning than actually getting the job done. So it's like, yeah, they might be efficient once they get going, but trying to get them to get going is almost like a challenge in itself. It's like, by the time they've planned how to do all of these 10 tasks, they've already got enough time now to do 3 of them. So this isn't to say one is better than the other. I'm just illustrating that they both have they're gifts. These are gifts that we have, and they have limitations, and it's understanding what they are. The better of the situation is merging this together, using your logic, using your reasons and your values, and you've got all these functions in you. It's not like just because you're a logical person you don't have feelings. Don't pretend to me that you don't. They're in balance. They're actually tied together. These are deciding functions. And just because you're a feely type person doesn't mean you've got no logic. You can use your logic. But yeah, so going back to the case study. So I need to introduce some extroverted feeling. It's my second function. It's the driver of my functions. It's the so it's one that kind of it helps direct things. It's up in the stack, and it helps to prioritize. So I can therefore, like, if I were to use it, so if I look at being a governor as a value, the value of being a governor, and I put that on a kind of scale, I can then deduce or deduct whatever what I want from that. Now, where do my wants, where are my values sit in comparison to the value of being a governor? Because that's a little it's like trying to spot a black hole. You spot the surroundings, you spot the effects of it. So I can't see, that's FI. Like FI is low down on my phone. I can't see my values, but I can easily see the values of a governor, and by deduction, I can therefore work out where do I fit in. And then this turns the dilemma into a case of basically tribe versus self. Now I can put my hands, I can grasp the concepts easier. Am I going to put the tribe first, or am I going to put myself first? And the thing is, this is like trying to please multiple tribes, because I've got the tribe of the governing body, and I've got the tribe of you guys who I'm talking to, and I've got the tribe of the parents of the school, and the tribe of the community as a general. So am I able to hold up the values and cater to try and strike a harmony between multiple tribes, or shall I, or where is the value of myself in this? Do I put myself last on that list? So if this is tribe versus self, this is basically changing the argument of being the value of being a governor versus the value of being a father. And with that stream I did before, you might have seen, now that you've got some of this insight, you might have seen a kind of merger of FE and TI to create an artificial TE. That's combining your function. Now, this is going into masterclass here. Sorry. Yes, you can combine your functions to create a kind of pseudo function that you don't have higher. Like my TE, notice, is at 7. Well, what if I artificially create another TE using 2 and 3? Then my TE would be higher up in the function stack. So then I can, that's using your functions like a badass. So TE, so my self reasons start to outweigh the reasons of the tribe. And you can see why I start to favor self over the tribe, even though people might say, hey, you need to value the tribe here. And doing this kind of processing, you start to do some self-discovery, in the sense that it crystallizes the idea of like I knew I wanted to be a father before, but I have a better understanding and even more reasons now why it is I value it the way I do. It's not just, I don't just say it before the sake of saying it. No, there is actually weight to the argument that I want to be a father more than I want to be a governor. And this is the process. That's how I ended up with the process of deciding in the end of what it is I wanted out of all of this and which direction I wanted to go. And in the process, discover what truly matters to myself. And turns out what matters truly to myself, without me having to really think about it, just from looking at all this sort of data, is I value family. That is what I put above all else. Family, being a dad, having a kid, having a family unit. That means more than the tribe. It means more than the world. It means I don't care what happens to the world. I don't care what happens to society. What I care about is family. That is of the utmost importance to me. And you see the methodology to derive that answer. It's just not. I'm not just saying it because it's socially acceptable or whatever to sound whatever quaint. No, these are the steps and understanding as to why it is. And each of these steps, it requires a shift of perspective, understanding. It's a sequence of events that takes place. You can't just give an explanation and expect all of this to unfurl the next day. No, this is part, as Bullets would say, part of that process. This is a process, and each step is a process of it in of itself, and requires a shift in your mental capabilities, in your mental direction. Like, these are pivotal moments of development, key stages, milestones of, like a child, milestones of development. These are milestone um, shifts in a sequence of events, and each one is critical, and the order in which you take them is important. Like, don't be skipping any of this. Don't try to rush any of it. You've got to like let it naturally play out. But that's part of the discipline, like learning like a martial arts, that kind of thing. It's part of the training to progress when you're ready to progress. Now, if you really want to be like a smarmy sort of bastard about this, you can kind of reverse engineer it as well. So you can, if you notice that if you're trying to help someone else, for example, and you notice some signs, then they are indicators that things, like if I use myself as an example, like let's say I'm being a bit cranky or aggressive or something like that, then it's a sign that somewhere in my sequence of thinking or feeling, I mean, it sounds kind of obvious, like he must be getting a bit pissed off. It's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. But I mean, it means like somewhere maybe he feels like boundaries are being crossed. Maybe he feels like he's being taken advantage of. Maybe he feels like he's being ignored. Maybe he feels like he's no longer needed or of no use. So you can kind of start to, instead of just being like, that's just a moany asshole over there, ignore him. You'd be like, no, there is actually reasons why this is happening, and it could all be resolved if we just sort of say hi to him. That's all he's looking for. Like, don't ignore him. Something, I don't know what it could be, whatever. But it's having that awareness perspective of seeing things and seeing how they. It's like if you've got a car and you can hear a grindy noise, you can kind of guess. I think the gears might need a bit of oil. So instead of like complaining that the car is not worth it and a rubbish car, it's like, well, you're a rubbish car owner because you're not putting any oil in it. Maybe if you put some oil in it, the car will work better. That's all it's asking for. So I hope this has been an enlightening stream, an educational learning for growth, right? And I think it's also another, it's a promotion to have better communication, a better literacy, so that we can communicate our ideas and understand better what's taking place. And I'm going to do a stream at some point about communication. So I think that'll be another useful stream in due time. Hopefully it'll come out soon. And having some honesty about this. You don't have to feel embarrassed or ashamed of it, because to be honest, everyone's got this sort of these complications, these flaws. No one's perfect. There'd be something wrong with you if you didn't have any of this stuff. These are the growing pains. These are parts of being more mature and responsible. You should look at it as a honor and a privilege, because it's because of these gifts that they come with these problems. Which they shouldn't be they can become problems because they're not being respected properly. So take it as a bit of a compliment is what I'm saying. It's like if you're struggling, it's probably because you've got a gift inside you somewhere that you're not recognizing. I apologize, I haven't been looking at the chat. Cuban Speed is here, and A Freebird's here, and MBTI Outlaw's here. Great to see you guys. Oh, not many comments. I guess you're all too busy like rattling your brains. The rare INFJs get all the attention. It's no each type gets their attention. I think it's I don't know. I don't know. Oh, Hammer's going live. Okay. Okay, so Freebird says, if you control your thoughts, you will control your emotions. I think they go kind of hand in hand. We can see how emotions can end up been roboting. INFJ, best friend or worst enemy, you choose. Yeah. But you'll notice that either way you look at that is an imbalance. They shouldn't be your best friend and they shouldn't be your worst enemy. They are, believe it or not, real. They are actual people. Them completely, and that's not treating them as real people. That is treating them as utensils or what it is the INFJ can do for people. So that's not a realistic. We talk about the INFJ being a bit delusional or living in la la land, daydreamer, but there's people with their own distorted perception of the INFJ, thinking they get all the attention. Just joking, Mr. Hemi. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's like don't like everyone's guilty. no one's innocent here. Fitting in the tribe requires compromising your own values. No thanks. Yes, and this is the trade-off. And I'm not sure we've got time. I've already been talking for an hour, but Freebird, maybe you already know about this, but like if you are allowing for it's like this town ain't big enough for the two of us, sort of thing. So it's like if you're going to allocate energy, time, resources, whatever, to the tribe, where are you in this? You don't exist, right? And this is why a lot of people like the INFJs, because they are hollow. They're hollowed out, and they can project what they like onto the INFJ. They become the mirror or an extension for other people. They make themselves small and insignificant so that other people can shine and live either through or on top of the INFJ. And that's where the INFJ gets pissed off, because they feel like they're being taken advantage of. And then if you put yourself forward, what does that mean? It means that you haven't got enough energy for the tribe anymore. So the tribe won't like that. And there'll be, as you asserting your boundaries. So how do you balance this? It's a tricky one. And this isn't just the INFJ problem. For example, the INTJ also has the same issue, but in the sense they're using their logic instead of their values of their feelings. And if you've got half of your functions are introversion and half of them are extroversion. So everyone, even as much as you like to proclaim you don't care what people think, you're lying. You do to some extent. Otherwise, you're going to be living in your own head in a biased introversion, distorted, megalomaniac kind of way. You do need some kind of verification from the tribe to know where you place. Doesn't mean you're at their mercy, or you're a puppet, or you're at you're just gonna go with like sheep or a follower. It just means you've got some acknowledgement that there are people besides yourself on this planet. And every so often it's good to get their opinion, even if you don't like their opinion, just so that you know what their opinion is, just so you can, as part of your calibration, you need something to calibrate against or with, or to like a reference chart or something like that. Otherwise, how do you know what you're calibrated to your own settings? That's not calibrating. That's doubling down. That is there is no need for calibration if you're just gonna go solo through everything. So as humans, we are social, and that's another sort of like it or lump it. We are social creatures. You survive through. I'm not saying socialism in the sense of like political, but in terms of like social groups, your neighbor, your family. That's a tribe. So we do need people. I mean, if you get sick, who's going to look after you? If you're sick for a week, you're on your own. Who's going to feed you? You're dead. So you do need people to be there. And it's in your interest if you're nice to these people. otherwise they're not going to want to help you. So you might not like them, but you still need to be nice to them. And then Freebird says it's a bit slow loading up. I get plenty of opinions. Well, there you go. There you get tribes. You're here right now. We're talking as a tribe. Like, damn it, Billy, you called me out. Yes. Tribes. Tribe just basically means other. Like, not me. I got there's self, and then there's not self. Everyone else. It could like my daughter's my tribe. The school is a tribe. Your neighbor's a tribe. Your friends a tribe. Your family are a tribe. Your spouse is a tribe. Your work colleagues are a tribe. Your countrymen are a bigger tribe. The human race is one grand tribe. So it's self and outside of self is what we're talking about, really. But anyway, so that's basically the context of this stream. This isn't really the crash course on MBTI. That'll be for another time and date. But we're stepping into it. I don't know how I have to ask the tribe. Like, are you okay with what we're discussing here, or are these sort of abbreviations just over? You're like, what the hell is all this stuff about? Do you need further explanation into these senses? Not sense. I mean, that's just one of them. Into these functions, do you need to I need a bit of feedback to know how in depth we should go. It's not something I really want to go in depth, to be honest, because there are other people who are more experienced with talking about it. But I'm trying to sort of put it in layman's terms. That's understandable, if that's okay. Then this is only going to be beneficial if you actually care about the MBTI. If you don't really care about knowing this, then there's no point in delving in. It's like if you're gonna, in my opinion, if you're gonna start messing around with it, take on board as much as you can. There's no really like pussyfooting around. Like people tend to sort of try and focus on the top 4 functions, but they don't really want to go into the other ones. Why did I put 5 there? It's going to be an 8 all this time. And really, they're all connected. So I don't see how people can really talk about the top 4 functions without having some sort of acknowledgement of the other functions. But it gets more complicated, as you would imagine. It would help to spell out the abbreviations. Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry. This is how they short form it. To a chemical engineer like me, it looks like periodic table. Okay, Kush. Yeah. Well, I'll cover that. I'll bear that in mind when I do a crash course on it. Because it does, especially like listening to someone who's talking with the abbreviations, where they'll say like NF DOM. You'd be like, what the hell is NF DOM? Oh yeah, NF DOM inferior fourth whatever SE, and you're like, what? You get the two constipated. Your ears are constipated, trying to like, huh? But you get used to it. Okay. All right. 90% over my head. That's all right. I know the type, but I have not learn much more than that. The loops, etc., are beyond me. Yeah, the loops are what I. That's one of the. That's I think that might have been the reasons why I started to bring up the MBTI, is because I was looking into like depression, anxiety, sadness, loneliness, cognitive dissonance, um, sort of analysis paralysis, mental constipation, and how to break these cycles. And that's where it's like, yeah, these loops are probably going to be beneficial to understand. So then um, we can attack. I don't want to say attack. It's not really the best word, really, but we can address the situation from a more kind of mechanical point of view, rather than just giving each other advice that just flies over people. Like, because everyone will hear the advice, like, oh yeah, you need to think better about yourself, and you know this stuff, you've heard it 1,000 times before, but why does it not resonate? Why is it people still struggle with the anxiety or the lack of motivation? They know what they need to do. Is it learned helplessness? Is it um, um, like chronic depression? Is it anxiety disorder? Is there something else going on? Is it PTSD or whatever? And he's like, well, perhaps it's because of your brain, because of how your cognitive processes are playing a part, and there is interference, or there is a missing section, a function that's not being used. And so, we talk about having greater awareness, covering our blind spots. This is part of that, because especially like the shadow functions is half your brain basically, and it's suggesting that basically half your brain is in a blind spot. Now, does that freak anyone out? You like to think you're in control of your mind, and I've just told you that, well, half your mind isn't really there. You like to pretend it doesn't exist, because it makes you uncomfortable. And that's for everybody. And it's not the same kind of blind spot, because everybody's got a different kind of blind spot. It depends on what kind of functions are in there. So it's just, yeah. I appreciate it might be a lot to take on, but it's fun. But is it a blind spot if you are aware of it? Yes and no. In a way, you might be aware of it, but you choose not to look. So it's kind of like it may as well be, you may as well be oblivious to it. And sometimes it'll rear its, not necessarily ugly head, it'll rear its head without you even realizing it. Like function number 7, they call that the trickster function. It's like the mischievous child. So it's a little bit devious. It kind of, you don't really have much. I think it's the one that you have the least amount of control over. So it kind of does what it likes. You don't really get to say if it stays in the shadow or not. Now and again, it will just pop its head up, and you'd be like, "Where the hell did you come from?" And you realize, you'd be a bit mystified. You'd be like, "I don't know. I feel like I'm being out of character. I was very childish. I can't believe I said that." It's like, that's your trickster, who was hiding all this time, decided to play peekaboo on you, and now you know. So yeah, it can. Yeah, maybe I need to put a disclaimer, like, this stuff can, if you're not careful, can maybe make you a bit gaga. You'll be a bit like, oh man, you're telling me I've got a critical parent, I've got the demon, and I've got a trickster. These are all part of me. Like, yeah. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. But don't worry, they're trying to help you out. They're keeping you on your toes. But yeah, is it really a blind spot? Well, the thing is, I mean, even the main 4 functions, unless you know what they are, in a way, you're kind of not blind to them, but you it's this weird sort of, when you understand it, you'd be like, oh, I see. So when I'm doing this and doing that, that's my such and such function, maybe 2 or number 3, doing its thing. There I was thinking, I was doing out of free will or because I wanted to. No, it seems like it's more of like a compulsion. It's like, yeah, so you're not as in charge as you might like to think you are, but you are as well. It's this kind of oxymoron duality sort of explanation. I mean, the more you're aware of it as well, the more you can hijack your own brain and take control of it and utilize it and for its full potential and things like this. You can actually be even more efficient and productive, knowing what it is. You can lean into the advantages of whatever functions you have and delegate where you're not so proficient if need be. For example, like my fourth function, look, my fourth function, SC, right? That's keeping me grounded in reality. Because that is number 1 and 4 are tied together, and 2 and 3 are tied together. So number 1 is daydreamer, looking into the future, visionary, looking at patterns, right? Looking at concepts, wants to find meaning, and then to stop me going living in la la land, then you've got SC to try and anchor me down in reality and be like, hey Billy, your leg's on fire. You're like, oh, I didn't even notice. Like, yeah, well, there you go. That's reality bite. That's reality telling you to like pay attention. And it's an inferior function. So, it's like the amount of times I'll need reminders. It's like, don't forget what time of day it is. Don't forget to have your lunch or dinner or whatever. Like diabetes, for example. Don't forget to have your injections. So how can I factor this in? Well, then I could be more responsible. Be like, right, I'm going to set an alarm, and when the alarm goes off, I'll know it's time for dinner. Or I'm going to wear flame-proof trousers so that I know, because I have a habit of my leg catching fire. So if I've got flame-proof trousers, I'll protect myself. I'll mitigate against the dangers of catching my leg on fire. So you factor in your disability. I don't want to say it's a disability, but you factor in your disadvantages. And in time, a healthier person would, whatever your first and fourth functions are, this is your inferior function, right? Inferior. And number 1, all right, let's get rid of this loop thing. Right? Try and tidy that up a bit, right? So this is like the this is kind of like the automatic, the main, the boss of everything. It's the second function that most people will see. So this is the one that is most apparent, most visual. This is what people mistype themselves as. You might think, oh, Billy's a very caring, compassionate person. That's because you can see the second function. You don't really see the first function. So 1 and 3. All right, so we'll leave that there. I'll just quickly end on this. So 1 and 4 are linked, right? 2 and 3 are linked. These are coins. It's like either side of the coin. So N is a perceiving function. S is a perceiving function. So they're both perceiving functions. F and T are deciding functions, and that's why they're linked. So 1 and 4. In this case, in the INFJ case, this is a perceiving function, right? And in this case, this is a deciding function. Now, this ain't going to be the same for everybody, because some people might have their deciding functions in 1 and 4 instead, right? But using this as the model, so 1 and 4 are linked, and 2 and 3 are linked. So this is going to be the most potent, most powerful, the strongest, the dominant. This is also known as the dominant function, by the way. Dom, we'll just put Dom, that's how they kind of abbreviate it. This is the parent function, most apparent. Put parent. This is sometimes known as the child, and this one is also known as, and that's the inferior. Okay. Where has number 4 gone? Oop. Right. So not the most organized, but you get the idea. Um, so if you want to be more healthy, you would go out of your way to exercise your fourth function, your inferior. You don't want it to be inferior anymore, whatever that is. So in my case, my sensory, extroverted sensory, it will be different for different people. So you want to exercise that and lean off, come off, stop being so reliant with this. And this is the danger of of running to your hero, because this is your hero. This is also known as your hero, your savior. Your when this is my go-to. If I could spend my whole life just doing this, just living in La La Land, I would. So stop being stop sucking on the tit of your hero and being dependent and reliant on it, and and putting it on steroids, enlarging in it like a bad prostate, and instead exercise the thing that you don't want to exercise. Now, how many times have we heard that kind of life tip? You know, face your fears, do the thing that you're uncomfortable with, exercise your weaknesses. This is it right here. Yeah, there it is. Right? Now, you're not going to want to do this because it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be painful. It's going to be awkward. You're not very, this is also like where SC, this is because it's in the fourth slot here. This will mean, you know, I could be a bit goofy in social settings. I'm not very socially adept, apparently. I don't know. You know, I might seem like a bit of a kind of dork or something, or clumsy, or like out of place, sort of, you know, shy or embarrassed, or you know, or nervous. I suppose nervous is the best way of putting it. Nervous in social settings. I wouldn't want to be on stage, sort of thing. Some people will have SC as their number one. They love being on stage. They love social settings. They love surprise. This is chaos to me. This is order. Order is trying to fight away chaos. Some people have it the other way around. They love chaos. They love the randomness, and they hate having order imposed on them. They hate having routine. Oh man, you're a buzzkill. You know, I love the thrill of anticipation. Like, but for me, I hate that. I don't like surprises. I like order. I like to know. I like to predict. And that makes me feel comfortable. You see. So it's like, if I want to be more balanced, it'd be, all right, Billy, stop living in La La Land and live and be on Earth a bit more. Okay. So understand your functions. Don't worry about your letters. That's the last thing you should be concerned about. All this does, by the way, is tell you what your first two functions are, right? If you hear people going on about, oh, this means introversion, this means intuition, this means feeling, and this means judging, well, you don't know what you're talking about, because all that's doing is telling you what the top two are. You've got, of course, that's what the letters mean. You've got all of the letters, the other four, right? For a comparison, right? So if you've got introverted, what's the opposite of introverted? Extroverted. What's the opposite of intuition? Will be sensing. What's the opposite of feeling? Will be thinking. What's the opposite of judging? Will be perceiving, right? There's 8 functions there. You've got all 8. So there's no point you saying to me, oh, I'm an introvert and I got intuition and I got feeling and I got judging. It's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Everyone has that. What matters is in what order. And that's all that's doing, is just telling you the top 2. You work out the rest from deduction. So that's all this is. That's all that these letters are doing. So really, you don't, these in of themselves don't mean anything. What you want to know is your function stack. When you know your function stack, then you can deduce and work out what letters you have, just so that you can put a rubber stamp on your forehead and feel better about yourself. But that these letters is erroneous. They don't mean anything on their own. It's all about the function stack. Every moment You are thinking about the future or the past. You are missing the present. Yes. Give the past and the future their due and no more. Yes, yes. That's another for INFJs and INTJs in particular. Be more mindful of the present and mindful of doing the thing you're not wanting to do. So because look, the INTJ also has SC, so the same kind of problem for them is to embrace a bit of chaos, a bit of randomness. It's okay to not be such a. You can also look at these and I as controlling. You need to predict the future because you are scared of chaos. How do you ward off chaos? You control the chaos. So there is a controlling element with these types. So a better way in life going forward will be stop being a controlling arsehole, learn to relax and enjoy the moment. Pretty simple advice, but somehow so hard to do. You know? Isn't that fun? Anyway, we'll leave it there. Otherwise, we're just going to carry on, and this will end up becoming a crash course. Really, I should have saved that for the crash course. JR, you're late. See me after class, please. It's good to see you, sir. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing all right. We're about to close up, so say your piece and enjoy the rest of your week. Be well, and see you again soon. Take care. Thank you.